So this is Nicole Stewart, and I'm talking to Jameson. Say hey, Jameson.
Hi.
Jameson is Tiffany's niece, and Tiffany, say hey, Tiffany.
Hey, everyone.
Tiffany and Jameson and I are going to be talking about Juneteenth, right? Do you have an idea what Juneteenth is, Jameson?
I honestly think it means like June 10th.
June 10th. Okay, so Juneteenth means June 19th. It's just an old black Southern way of saying June 19th. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Juneteenth. But it does sound like June 10th.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you remember about Juneteenth? What do you remember?
I remember that. So it's like black slaves were just slaves, and the Emancipation Proclamation where they had this contract, and it was so slaves wouldn't have to be slaves and they could be free. But let's say it's like the people who was holding the slaves and making the slaves work didn't want them to leave. So 2 years later, they finally told the slaves that like Juneteenth means you're supposed to be free, but they didn't let them go. They didn't want them to go. So some of the people left, and then while they were going across the river, they got caught, and they would like lynch them, hang them, and they would shoot them, and I don't think that's very nice.
No. So you're right, Jameson, you're right. So Juneteenth, you're right, the Emancipation Proclamation is what Abraham Lincoln signs for enslaved people to be free. But nobody told the slaves. So they let the slaves stay slaves as long as they possibly could. And then when they found out, the slave owners got mad at the slaves for wanting to leave. Because imagine if you were a slave and somebody was like, hey, Jameson, you know you don't have to do this anymore. Would you stay or would you leave?
No, I would leave. I would go back to my family.
Exactly. You would go back to your family. The people who were the slave owners didn't want that. So instead of them recognizing them as people and letting them go on about their way, they tried to shoot them. They tried to hang them. They tried to murder them. They tried to do a lot of bad things to those people to keep them from being free. And you're right, that's not very nice. And so we celebrate Juneteenth as a celebration of freedom because people didn't recognize black people as being Americans and as being a whole person. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So do you know what I mean by they didn't recognize us as being a whole person?
No.
No. Okay. What don't you understand about it?
I don't understand when you say that. It doesn't come to my head.
Okay. So when people were slaves, the white people who owned the black people didn't look at us as human beings. They looked at us like we were cows or sheep or pigs or something.
Dogs?
Something that you would have on a farm, like an animal. We weren't completely human. We were 3/5 human, I think is what they said we were. And so they didn't recognize us as being human beings. They recognized us as being property, as being like a cow or a sheep, something that you can breed and keep on your farm. So when it was time for us to go, they got really upset about their cattle or their livestock
Did
leaving.
the slaves sleep?
Did they sleep? Yeah, like were they able to go to sleep? Yeah, they were able to go to sleep.
On the floor?
Sometimes, yes.
They didn't have a bed?
No.
Where is their bed?
I think they made a pallet on the floor.
So where'd the white people sleep?
In a bed.
In big houses.
In big houses. Balcony at the top. Those are plantation houses. And that's where the slave owners would live. And then the slaves would live behind that house in little shacks.
So why when the white people went to sleep, they didn't go?
That's a good question. Some people did. Some people did go.
Did they get away with it?
Some people did, some people didn't. So remember me telling you about being what lynched was? So sometimes when those people were found, they were brought back to the plantation, they were whipped, like we were talking about before, or they would be lynched to set an example for other black people to say, if you try to run away, this is what's going to happen to you.
Do the white people come and get you, or do you just turn into bones and die?
It all depends, but most of the time, once they're hung, the family will come and cut them down from the tree.
The family?
Yes. And once they're hung, like if they were going to hang TT, I would be out there by myself. You better not come out there and try to come get me.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Juneteenth is the celebration of not having to deal with that part of slavery. It's like black people are free. We don't have to worry about that. We shouldn't have to worry about that. And it needs to be celebrated. Does that make sense?
But did like old people have to work too?
Yes.
What if they were 90?
They still had to work. They still had to work. You could be as young as 4 or 5 years old and as old as 90.
So if I was born back then, I would have to work?
Yes.
And what if I cry?
You work and cry.
You had to pick cotton?
Yes. Or tobacco or rice or corn, or you take care of the animals, or you clean the house, or you do whatever. You do whatever they wanted you to do.
I don't think that's fair.
No, it's not.
Do we still do it, some people?
Do we still do what to some people, Jameson?
Like, do some people, like, still have to slave?
That
is a valid question.
it's not called so much as slavery. It's other words that we use. Treating somebody, a person, different just because of the color of their skin or because of what they can't do or what they don't know. And so you're treating them differently. And so the things that are happening today, it's because of the color of your skin. They just want to be in control. And so we still get mistreated. It's just a different form of slavery. It goes on.
I think as mean as white people has been to us, like, they should be doing this slavery and they should know how it feels to do this stuff. It's not fair. Like, they kill us, the police who killed George Floyd. It's not fair. And some people just come and tear up Tennessee. White people come from all over the country. And that's not fair to us. We've been working so hard to build this place and make it like nice and clean, and they come and destroy it. It's just not fair. There's a lot of white people who's mean in Franklin. We go every day and never see black people walking downtown. I think it's unfair. And I think all people, back then, I think all people should have the right to like drink out the same water fountains, go in the same building. It's not like white people rules the world. Because God made us like equal. He wants us to be equal. And like they killed Martin Luther King just for speaking up for black people. It's not fair. I think that they shouldn't do that. Yeah.
Out of the mouth of babes.
Yeah, out of the mouth of babes, Jameson. You got it. You got it. So, do you think people should celebrate Juneteenth?
Yes. I think it should be like a holiday to celebrate black people and they're not being slaves anymore. I think it's just like celebrate us. Like for all the hard work we did and now we're getting out, it's just happy moment. And I think we should celebrate it.
Okay. Do you think you should learn about it in school?
Yes. We barely learn anything in school, so yes, I think we should. Cause not all people knows about this stuff, and they need to. Instead of like just doing boring things all day, they should be learning this stuff. And that's what I think.
Okay. Got anything else you want to say? You said a lot, Jameson.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
If you had one request, just one request, you could tell the person in charge one thing, what would it be?
I would be saying if black people didn't do all that work, white people would not be here today. And it's just rude. And I think that people who does bad things to, like police who does bad things to, like some black people, they just get fired and move on with their life. They should be in jail, charges and all that stuff, but they're just fired, and I don't think that's right. And I think that it's just mean, and I would very, very say that black people have lives, and if you don't want to treat them right, go somewhere else, because it's not fair to us. Yeah, that's what I say.
Okay. Thank you, Jameson.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome.